Hi, I'm Lisa Sargese, author of Diary of a Fat Girl and the CD Relaxation with Lisa that will help you to de-stress. Both are available on Amazon. Today is day 28 of my 30-day gym challenge, where I came to the gym every day, regardless of how I felt about it, to prove a point to myself that this isn't hell, it's not torture, it's not a place where other people get to decide who I am. It's a place that I can own for myself and my own health. I began my adventure, because I hate the word journey. I don't know why. It's kind of true, but the end destination is... You never finish growing and developing and becoming, so why call it a journey? So it's an adventure, it's an odyssey. When I had my gastric bypass in 2006, I weighed over 400 pounds at my heaviest. And of course, you go on a pre-op diet, so I was down to, I think, 377 the day of the surgery. But I was certainly much heavier as I was preparing for it. And people said surgery was the easy way out, and that infuriated me. It was a complicated surgery. I was reversing from a slipped lap band to a gastric bypass. It was a longer surgery than expected. I did end up in the ICU. They did almost lose me on the table. Very dramatic stuff. That's why the book has been written, to discuss all this. And since people said this is the easy way out, I'm like, oh, how dare you? How dare you say this is the easy way out? There's nothing easy about this. So after, it was a prolonged recovery. There was a hematoma that formed inside, blah, blah, blah. And so it took me about 3 months to get back on my feet. I worked, though. Oh, I worked immediately. I never stopped teaching. I worked like a few weeks afterward. My father had to walk me into my classroom because I could barely walk from the car to the class. Yes, I talk about my parents in my book. They're not always awful. They have done awful things, and they have done wonderful, supportive, loving things. So things aren't so black and white. So yes, there are times when they have absolutely come through for me and shown me love. And then there's times I've gotten less than loving responses from them. So I love them unconditionally. I wish they could love me the same, or maybe they do, they just don't express it well. Anyway, so I came to the gym 6 days a week for 10 months. I looked back in the blog. It was 10 months, and then I just collapsed from exhaustion. I was doing too much in the wrong way. Now, there are people who could certainly tolerate that level of exertion. I couldn't. Plus, the arthritis was so poor, and I didn't know what was going on. Multiple conditions forced me to make a decision, and the decision was to lay off the gym. And then I hated the gym and never wanted to come back to the gym. 11 years of that. 11-year plateau. With not much regain, by the way. There's some weight came back. For the most part, I kept off well over 120 pounds. If that means anything to you. So what did I want to talk about today? Illness. Sickness. Now, I can't give you medical advice, so I have to be very mindful of using I statements and only talking about my experience. What happens when you're sick? I've been sick for these past few days. Strange. I almost went to the ER. Been having these heart flutters. And they were almost constant, like blah, 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 blah. It wasn't tachycardia. I measured, it was only 76 beats per minute resting. But it was bloopy. I do have a heart murmur since I was very young. The cardiologist says he's not concerned about it at this time. But it was like 5 days of these weird heart palpitations and fevery feelings and shortness of breath. Shortness of breath that felt like it felt when I had pneumonia back in 2005. I remember that, like, I couldn't take a breath. And then they treated me for asthma after that. I've had lung issues. So I've been feeling a little strange. I'm feeling better now. It's subsiding. You know, I did the WebMD thing. I know. I don't encourage you to do that. Don't be your own doctor. Go get help. It's summer. You know, I don't have a ton of income coming in. I didn't want to go increasing my medical debt in any way. I felt, well, if I could still walk, talk, eat, sleep, drive. The other night I had to have my friend drive my car. I was dizzy. But I went on a WebMD, and I didn't feel good. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Coming to the gym, hopping on the bike, but I just don't feel like it. I said, well, because you gave your word. I'm like, well, isn't this the same crap all the time? You give your word for some crazy thing, and then you overdo it until you don't feel well, and I'm like, I'm just going to work through it. I'm just going to work through whatever this is, and I did. A couple of years ago when I republished my book, it used to be, and it's still there on Amazon for some reason, it was called Losing 140 Pounds the Hard Way. Unedited, a mess. It's basically the same book, but unedited, and there's things in there that I took out with the Diary of a Fat Girl. And what was it, 2 years ago, Diary of a Fat Girl came out? So a few years ago with, maybe 4 years ago, Losing 140 Pounds the Hard Way. Then I went to a professional company and to self-publish. I don't want a publisher telling me what to do. And I know people who have real publishers, and they definitely do tell you what to do and restrict your online activity and ways you promote the book. So no, I want control. It was that summer that Diary of a Fat Girl was being edited, beautiful cover being made, making it professional. That was the summer of the anemia. I was dragging. I went to my doctor. I pleaded. I'm like, I'm so tired. You gotta help me. Even though I didn't have health insurance at the time, which I eventually did get. Thank you for Affordable Health Care Act. And he took my blood, the doctor, and I was down to a 5. My hemoglobin was 5. I was missing more than half of my red blood cells. We don't know where they went. They just left. And Doc, he looked in my eyes. He's like, did you drive yourself here? I'm like, you have no idea how tough I am. Well, they sent me in and gave me blood. Bags of blood. I don't know how many bags. Two bags of packed red blood cells. Thousands of dollars this costs, by the way. Even with insurance, there's quite a hefty copay. I didn't have insurance for that first bag of blood. Got the bill, freaked out. Got the health care. Yes, my mother helped me. This is what she does. She can help me financially. And so she does. So I'm not completely like, oh, she's the worst mother in the world. She's problematic, to say the least. Help me. But the docs were like, we have to find out where your blood went. And I'm like, well, I've had very heavy periods for 2 years. Like, very heavy. Like, should have gone to the ER heavy. So I lost a lot of blood. Well, your body would have replaced it by now. I'm like, I think it's the malabsorption from the weight loss surgery that's keeping me from absorbing my nutrients. No, we have to look. So the summer 2 years ago, we went on this search for why I had no red blood cells, and they found nothing. I had they checked my heart, the 3 major tests, including a stress test. They didn't seem to, there was nothing amiss except the heart murmur, and that doesn't make you bleed. Endoscopy. Found nothing. Colonoscopy. That's when they found a polyp the size of my thumb. They called it precancerous. I'm like, you mean non-cancerous? They're like, no, precancerous. I'm like, no, non-cancerous. Anyway, they cut it out. My blood must have been very thin or something because the stitch didn't hold. And that night, when I was eating my burger at Zinburger, because I was trying to eat red meat, yeah, I passed out, bled out on the floor. I haven't been back there to see if it stained the floor. Like bad. ER, emergency surgery, stitched me back up, and I went down to a 6. I lost all the blood they'd put in. Back up into intensive care, putting blood into me. You know, they don't know exactly why, you know, then they have to go looking to make sure the stitches held, blah, blah, blah. It was an ordeal. It was an ordeal. It was painful and expensive and uncomfortable. But they still want to find out why I was so anemic. So then I had to swallow a little camera. Little capsule camera. And that found nothing. Nothing. Thousands of dollars. Doc's conclusion? Well, most likely it's malabsorption from the weight loss surgery. Well, I'm glad we have science so that we could prove that I'm right. So you can imagine my state of mind, how weak and sick I was, all the while this publishing company is working on my book, and I am in flaky land, total flaky land, not answering emails, unable to make decisions because I can't think clearly. They're sending me edited versions of things, and I had to like look at them, and I'm like, I don't know, you know, making mistakes. It was since like re-edited even a year later because of stuff I didn't catch the first time around. A few things that they should have caught. I paid them a lot of money to edit that book. And things I should have caught, but couldn't. Because I didn't have my wits about me. Why am I telling you this long, laborious story? Well, I know spiritual warfare when I see it. Now, you don't have to be religious or spiritual, because you could also just call it a psychological truth. That when we are stepping outside of our comfort zones and trying to become a person, I talked about this yesterday, our self-concept, when we're trying to become a person that we want to be, and the person we've been conditioned that we are, by well-meaning but emotionally immature or emotionally unavailable parents. When we try to become a new person that doesn't agree with our self-concept, that is, of course, alive, it's limiting and horrible, that limiting self-concept will pull us back because, oh my God, if you go out into the world thinking you're all that, you're going to get hurt. And this isn't who you are. And you better play it safe. And you better obey the people who told you that you were just mediocre or problematic or no good or you can't do this. And your subconscious mind will come and grab you. You could also say it's the enemy. You know, every world religion has the idea of an enemy that comes to stop us from being our best selves, from receiving blessings and grace. But this enemy had me. And I knew it as it was happening. I'm like, I can't believe that this is all happening at the same time as I'm trying to put this book out that's so important to me, this labor of love. So Diary of a Fat Girl is a labor of love. Truly. And the fact that people write me reviews, there's some recent ones, very generous ones. Thank you. That it gave you inspiration and hope. Good. That was the purpose of all this. To give people inspiration and hope and to be heard and witnessed. So here I am. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Here I am doing my 30-day challenge here. And I get this weird heart palpitations and sickness and not feeling well and fevery. And I'm like, this happens every freaking time that I'm trying to be on this path toward wellness and success and abundance. I can't even say the words. Toward wellness, abundance, and success. some shitting thing comes along to knock me out, to knock me off. I wasn't going to let it this time. Like, screw you, thing. Whether you're in my mind or you're the enemy. No, you are not the boss of me. I'm going to keep going. Because even if I'm not well, 10 minutes on the bike won't kill me. I'll be okay. Do I recommend that you do these insane things like working when you're sick? I say take it easy. You know what? If you make a commitment and you're not feeling well, now depending on how not well, you have to be the judge of whether you can really make it to the whatever, class, gym, worship, book club, whatever it is your commitment is. You could always do this. Even in bed with a cold, you can do this. And you can do that with your feet too. And you could do this. You could stretch. You gotta stretch. I'm using you statements. I shouldn't be giving movement advice. I know that I can stretch. 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 You can do something. We can do something. I could do something. So I kept going. I'm glad I did. I don't know. I think I had a little bit of an infection or something. Who knows? Yes, if it continues, I will seek medical help. I promise. Just notice when these things come up to stop you. Yes, attend to yourself if you're not feeling well, but just recognize it and recognize, wow, does this happen every time that I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone and be well? Does some terrible thing pull me back? Am I afraid to be abandoned by the people in my life because if I improve, if I improve, they're going to abandon me or criticize me or not want to be around me, or I'll be a bad person. People won't want to give me sympathy and compassion and attention if I improve, right? There's all these things, these subconscious mechanisms that are going to come in and try to knock you off your path because success is just too alien. Success as you define it is just too alien to who you've been. Notice when these things come up to pull you back to the old way of being. And then push past it in a safe and loving way. At least that's my hope, that we can do this and support each other as we do this. Tomorrow's day 29, the next to last day. I'm thinking of the next step and maybe calling it one day at a time and doing some form of exercise or movement every day, preferably coming here. This is just so easy. Look, I'm in I had to do something today. I had to go to a university today and do something. So I'm dressed in work clothes and the nice jewelry and everything. See, this is from my mentor, Ismelda. Beautiful earrings, my favorite everyday earrings. I came anyway. I didn't work up a terrible sweat. And I smell beautiful. And I've marinated my own beautiful perfume. So notice when the excuses and the old patterns come up. And know that you're bigger than them. That's not who you are. Hit that like button. Leave me a comment if you feel so moved. Check out my book. Stay tuned for From Wheelchair to Warrior. I'm in the process of putting that one together, my next book. And be as well as you can.